What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. I'm hoping Sam's going to join. We're going to draft a 555 best ball ticket. It filled. We had 9 of 12 in the lobby, and then the next 3 came in like all at once. So we're kind of scrambling to get this going. But I am in the lobby. The first round is underway. So, in fact, I will bring this up as we wait, and hopefully Sam can join us. But I've got the last pick, which I'm actually very okay with. I feel like the last pick is almost certainly a disadvantage, but some of my favorite teams that I've drafted had come from this last pick. So a lot of it depends on who slips. If basically I have loved my team, if Garrett Wilson falls, usually he doesn't, in which case I've got a couple routes that I can go, but we'll see what happens here in the first round. And I'm also going to get this up on my phone just to make sure that nothing lags or anything like that. And again, hopefully Sam will join soon. But if not, it'll just be me, and we'll talk shop all the way through. As you can see on the screen here, we've got a fantastic promotion going right now over at FTN Fantasy. It's the biggest draft week of the entire season. This is a best ball draft, but you guys have your fantasy football leagues. 15% off, promo code FTN15. Any subscription at FTN Fantasy, whether it's the core football, just fantasy football, whether it's fantasy plus, gets you the stats as well. Or maybe you're like me, you're like Sam, you love DFS and you want all of that. You can go the DFS package, or you can go VIP and get betting as well. All super, super affordable, easily the best value in the industry. My 2 picks are coming up, so let's kind of hone in here now and see what we got. Garrett Wilson done early, AJ Brown gone. If Puka and Harrison are there, I'll be taking one of them for sure. I'd probably take both if that's what falls. But I'm guessing, okay, so Harrison is kind of the guy that I wanted because I love Kyler. So I'm definitely going to take Harrison. Going to give myself a little bit just to make this second selection. If I was confident that Ayuk was going to be out of San Francisco, Debo would definitely be the other pick here. I still might go that route. The other option would usually be Jahmyr Gibbs for me, but I think I'm going to take the chance on Debo going out of town. So I'm going to start with Harrison. And I've got time to make this selection. I don't really need the time to make the selection. But yeah, I think I'm going to take that gamble and go Debo. And then if I do that, I really want Kittle to be a priority for me, because if Debo is a great pick here at 13, then Kittle will be a fantastic pick where he goes. So I think that's the route I'm going to go. I love Kittle so much, so I want to get him anyway. So then I get a little bit of correlation, and I also get some of that inverse correlation that I've been talking so much about. In fact, if you're watching and you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about with inverse correlation, there in the description, at the bottom of the description, is a link to my favorite overlooked best ball strategy. It's free to read. So as we wait here for my second pick, you can go start to read that over. But it's a really, really fun strategy to use, and it's one that not a lot of people are using. The basis of the strategy is that best ball can be really frustrating. You can have a week where all your guys do super well, and you're looking at the team as a whole, and you say, man, look at all these great scores on my bench. And the next week, you need all of those scores, right? You've got 3 guys in your lineup scoring less than 10 points, and you think, damn, if only I could borrow some of the points that my bench guys got me last week and insert them into my lineup this week. Well, one of the ways you can counteract that, one of the ways you can take it from 6 guys go off, and then only 1 goes off, and then 4 go off, and then 2, and make it more like 4 go off this week, 3 the next week, 4 the following week. Bring it much more balanced, so you're not wasting guys and you're not getting those floor performances, is to go to teammates who are inversely correlated and stack your team that way. Because, for example, like if I end up getting Kittle, if Debo has a huge game, okay, that's probably one of Kittle's down performances. But if Kittle has a great game, then Debo is a little bit less likely to have a great one. And when you do that same sort of thing at maybe 2 running backs at the same position, 2 receivers, you get that inverse correlation even more, and you make it so that you don't have that excess, great play one week, and then you have a shortage the next week at the position. So easily my favorite strategy. And part of the reason it's my favorite strategy is because I don't think many people are using it. And the other thing I'll say there, Sam and I did a strategy session earlier. In fact, if you're watching this now, you might have been one of the people watching earlier. So we did touch on this a lot, but one of the things I didn't mention was, or I didn't talk about at length, is the idea that this is not just a regular season strategy. I think this is very easy to understand once you kind of hear the explanation throughout the regular season. It's that week in and week out, you're just getting more bang for your buck from the actual players. Your players are greater than the sum of their individual parts. But this is also a great strategy for the playoffs because one of the, again, kind of frustrating, but also somewhat counterintuitive things about basketball that also makes it just a little bit extra fun and stressful at the same time is the fact that when you get to the playoffs, you have this really weird dynamic where once you're in the second round, you hope that when you're looking at a guy who's going off in that second round of the playoffs, you hope that the week prior he did poorly, because the worse he did the week prior, the more likely he is to be really low owned in that second round. Well, one easy way to do that is to use two guys from the same team, both very boomer bust, high upside guys, but they're going to have down weeks, who are inversely correlated. So one of my favorite examples to go to there is Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. If in the first round of the playoffs, Hollywood Brown goes 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, maybe he catches a really long touchdown. Well, chances are Xavier Worthy did really poorly that week. So if you get to the second week and Xavier Worthy has that huge game, well, guess what? He's likely doing it at really low ownership. And the only way you can kind of do that and almost plan for your first round team that advances to have some really bad performances is if you have some other guys on your team who are benefiting from those bad performances. Otherwise, if your really high upside guys don't come through, chances are they're low owned, but you're not in the second round either. So it's a really nice way to, I think, prepare for the playoffs as well. Again, that's why it's easily my favorite strategy. And I'm sure people are going to catch up to it soon, but for now, we've got a pretty nice edge with it. So coming up here again in the second round, or in the third round, I should say, at the 3-4 turn. So if Ayuk slips, this becomes a really interesting decision, right? If Ayuk slips to me here, I probably do take him, and now I'm just benefiting from the inverse correlation between Ayuk and Debo, because if Ayuk is traded, if it's to Pittsburgh, he probably loses a lot of value. Now, he has fallen enough that maybe it would still be worth it at this tag, but it'd be close. It'd be really, really close. So we're just going to kind of wait and see who falls here. You see all the big quarterbacks are still on the board. Allen, Mahomes, Hurts. Obviously, I don't have either Devontae or A.J. Brown, so I'm probably not going Hurts, but Allen would be very much in play for me. So he's on the board. I probably don't go Mahomes at this point. I have a lot of Mahomes, but I don't think I want him in the 5-5-5 just because I take him because I like the stack, but I don't think I want to go that route here because it's a very high risk move. Number one, you need the stack. You need the whole stack for it to be worthwhile. And I obviously don't have that here. And beyond that, I just think Hurts and Josh Allen are far, far better. So the two guys I wanted, Ayuk and Metcalf, I don't get. So I'm almost certainly going to go Josh Allen here. I'm just going to put him in the queue. So if I run out of time, it goes that way for me. Let's see. Beyond that, tough decision next. I could honestly reach for Kincaid. I'm just going to let it run out and take Josh Allen. I think that Diggs is the best player available at this point, so I'm going to put him in the queue. When I take Diggs, I like to have either Tank Dell or Nico Collins, though, so I'm not super in love with that pick. There's no chance I'm going to get Tank Dell coming back. So I may just reach on Kincaid here and get myself the start of this stack. That's what I'm going to do. I have no problem reaching early. This is another just conceptual thing for me. I like reaching early a little bit because I think all of these guys are great. I don't feel as though taking Kincaid cost me a really, really great player, like a top 15 type player. And what reaching allows me to do is just get a bit of a unique combination of players. And you never know which unique combination is going to be the unique combination that wins in the postseason. So I'm always happy to take unique combinations. I don't need Diggs start anymore. So now let's just take a look at the team so far. Josh Allen, Dalton Kincaid, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. and Deebo Samuel. If I can do both Josh Allen and Kyler Murray, obviously I'm set at quarterback. I don't need a third quarterback with that duo. That's obviously what I'm hoping for here. It's interesting. I could have gone Trey McBride there. And the The upside of doing that is, let's say I did miss out on Kyler, I still get that inverse correlation between Harrison and McBride. So the reason why I didn't was just because I already have Josh Allen, and I have a feeling that Kincaid, as many do, that Kincaid's going to be the wide receiver one. Somebody, or one of my favorite picks so far this season, this offseason, has been Curtis Samuel. Now there's a little bit of uncertainty around his injury, so I'm slightly down on him relative to where I was a little while ago. As you can see, there's optimism that he'll be ready for week one, but man, with turf toe, it's an injury I've had before in soccer and basketball seasons. It's not fun, and it can linger. So just because of that, I like having at least one guy that I know I'm going to be in on with Josh Allen, because I don't love Keon Coleman. I don't love Khalil Shakir, but I do love Josh Allen at his average draft position and where I got him here. So I like kind of guaranteeing myself at least one stack partner with him. And then if Samuel's still available to me at a nice price, I will happily take that. But I don't at this point feel compelled into taking Curtis Samuel with that lingering injury. So feeling pretty good about the start. Obviously, I need some running back help eventually. I don't ever draft in the sense of like, okay, this next pick, I'm going to take a running back. It always is going to depend for me on who's available, what kind of value there is on the guy, what kind of upside is available on the guy. So, I know that I have my pockets throughout the draft where at kind of any point in time, I can take running backs if I need. At any point in time, I can find tight ends if I need, or receivers if I need. So I know where those pockets of guys are. And again, that makes me feel not compelled to do anything. My next pick is going to be 60 and 61. Given the fact that somebody else is Trey McBride, I will almost certainly have to take Kyler there if I want him. I am certainly happy to take him there. It'll be very interesting. Like, I don't even know what the right answer is, but let's say I came up and Richardson's still available. That's a pretty that's close enough that I'm always going to go to the correlation and take Kyler. Let's say, shockingly, Lamar was still available in 7-8 picks. Would I go Lamar instead of Kyler because he's just that much better? I honestly do not know what the answer is there. So we're going to wait and see. I don't have to make that decision, though. Lamar just went. So we can take a look now. So my favorite guy on the board here is honestly probably Xavier Worthy, knowing that I am almost certainly going to draft Hollywood Brown because I'm happy to take Hollywood Brown well ahead of where he's going right now. Although I will say one of the interesting things about doing a 5-5-5 draft, I'm not usually in the high stakes, is I don't necessarily know how much different the draft position or how much different the behavior is from guys at this level compared to the drafts that I'm usually in. I'm in here with a ticket. I want a ticket through PGA because our GPP scores in PGA have been phenomenal. It's been an unbelievable DFS season. We have the exact same GPP scores and GPP score philosophy ready to go for NFL. So it's going to be a hell of an NFL DFS season too. Again, FTN 15% off. And let's get ready to make these picks. So right away, I know I'm almost certainly going to take Kyler with one of these. And then I'm going to end up taking Kittle with the other. Already have it figured out. Don't need much thought on this one. We're just going to go ahead and take both of those guys, and we are all set. Now I'm feeling really good. So bit of an unusual strategy here, right? I only have 2 receivers. I already have 2 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends. Love unique builds. I love kind of changing things up. But now also, when you get to the playoffs, one of the reasons why I love this type of build is when you get to the playoffs, what is it? It's spike weeks. And the thing about spike weeks is, let's say I get a spike week from Allen and Kincaid in the first round of the playoffs. When I get to the second round of the playoffs, who's super, super popular? Allen and Kincaid. If I get another spike week from them, it's not helping me advance to the third round that much because they've already done that. They're already in 60% of the teams in advance or something along those lines, right? So the fact that I have another elite pairing, quarterback tight end, means I could get the spike from somebody else, and that somebody else is now going to be really low owned. So that's why I love this type of build. Yes, it hurts me a little bit at wide receiver. Yes, it hurts me at running back. Of course, there's nothing we can do that doesn't hurt us in some way. But I love this type of build because of the way it sets me up for the playoffs. And also, it's like tight end is super volatile, right? We know how difficult it can be to get consistent performance from tight end. And we also know how rare it is that you get the 35-point performance, 40-point performance from a quarterback. So Allen and Kincaid, and then I also have the Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr. stack, and then I have the inverse correlation stack between Debo and Kittle, who would be positively correlated in the sense that if Ayuk gets traded, they both benefit. So a lot going on here, but point being, I kind of love this start for myself. So let's see where it goes from here. We're going to have plenty of time before the next pick. Hey, if you're following along, if you want to drop any questions, any comments, roast me on any picks, I don't care. Drop it in the YouTube chat. Come hang out. You can ask questions about basketball. You can ask questions about your fantasy football team, your upcoming draft, whatever. You can also ask me about week 1 pricing. I love talking DFS. You can also ask me about PGA, whatever you want. Just come hang out. We're going to have some fun. And while you're here, sign up for FTN. FTN 15 gets you 15% off any subscription. Get yourself ready for the draft. And one exciting announcement. We are going to have a brand new DFS metric, fantasy metric. Honestly, you can use it for betting. You can use it for fantasy football. And of course, you can use it for DFS. DVOA adjusted fantasy points against. Everybody loves citing those numbers. So-and-so is 28th against tight ends. Well, maybe they just played Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. That's why they're allowing so many points. So DVOA adjusted. We're adjusting for opponent, and we're going to be using DVOA in a way to make them even more predictive as possible. So super excited to have that metric, and it's going to be directly in our optimizer this year. So again, sign up, ftnfantasy.com/pricing. Look for the DFS package and use promo code FTN15 for 15% off. All right, let's see here. We are up at 84 and 85. 84 and 85. If I can take some running backs here, wouldn't be a bad idea, particularly if I can get some running backs who are inversely correlated. So obviously there's a really obvious one here. Najee Harris. And where are you, Jaylen Warren? All the way at 100. Wow, he's fallen a little bit, I guess, because he's got that questionable tag. I don't really care much about that at all. But my favorite pick in all of best ball right now, if not Hollywood Brown, it's DeAndre Hopkins. So I've got both of those guys available here as well. There's a chance that either one of those guys would fall to 108 and 109, but very unlikely, I think, at these stakes. So going to have a decision to make here. I think if Harris and Warren are both available, I go that route. If either have been drafted, then I might go Hollywood and Hopkins here. But again, we'll see. We've got time to figure it out. I have a feeling those Steelers are going to be available. Hard to see someone taking Najee when, well, there we go. Someone did take Najee, right? As I said, it was hard to imagine it happening. So first of all, I'm going to bring Warren down to the bottom. I don't need to have him in there at all. I really don't like Swift. In fact, when I don't take running backs, some of my favorite targets are Herbert and Roschon Johnson later, so I'm definitely not going that route. So I think I'm just going to let this run out and go Hollywood Brown to start. And now, man, there's a chance that Hopkins falls. So maybe I don't do that. Maybe I go to one of my favorite running backs and go Raheem Mostert. Where is Spears being taken now? 113. So there's a chance that I would be able to get Spears on the way back. So maybe I go Pollard. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go Pollard. Sam and I were even talking about this duo earlier, Pollard and Spears being one of the more undervalued duos. You also get the inverse correlation where, if Pollard has a huge game, Spears probably isn't having that huge game. So, and then it can go the other way as well. When I look for duos, I do look for slightly more defined roles between the two. Like Pollard and Spears, very similar players, right? So it wouldn't shock me if one guy has, the early down carry role and the goal line carries, and the other guy has the the receiving down role, it wouldn't shock me, but I think the more likely scenario is that they just kind of both get mixed in. They ride the hot hand. Maybe you benefit from Pollard being banged up one week and Spears being banged up the next. So there are still obvious ways in which they are inversely correlated. So I am still going to target that, but they're maybe not as inversely correlated as like a Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson, or a Zach Moss and Chase Brown is certainly one of my favorite duos, and one that I was taking a whole lot earlier when Chase Brown was in like the 120s to 130s. He has obviously moved up a ton. So I haven't been taking as much of Chase Brown, but I do still take plenty of him because Zach Moss has actually fallen enough that I can still, I feel like the way the industry has valued the backfield as a whole hasn't changed, even though Chase Brown has gone way up. So I said my next picks were at 108 and 109. It's like, I don't think most of those guys are going to make it back to me, but we will see. We will see. The guy I really want to make it back is DeAndre Hopkins. I would also be very happy going Curtis Samuel next, but I also really want TJ Spears next. So we got three main targets. Hopefully 2 of the 3 make it back to me. 5 picks away. No, plenty more. It's only on pick 98. Got real excited for a second, but I was incorrect. Another one that I like targeting a lot, Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. So if somehow everybody that I'm targeting is taken, I do have that other option for an inversely correlated backfield pairing. Starting to look less and less likely that Hopkins makes it to me, and I've now lost 2 of my guys. So hopefully Spears makes it, and then beyond that, I'm not sure where I would want to go. So I also lost Curtis Samuel. There goes Palmer. I think I should be able to get Spears. If Spears goes off the board at this point, it almost certainly means that both Robinson and Eckler are available, so I'd go that route. Although actually, Chase Brown and Zach Moss are still available somehow. So, man, if both of those guys were on the board, I might even go that route and just not take Spears, because that backfield pairing at 108, 109 would be pretty spectacular. So at this point, I know I'm getting something that makes me happy. So that makes me happy. See what it's going to be. Brown and Moss, or Spears and undecided. Wow. Chase Brown, Zach Moss. That feels pretty good at 108, 109. One thing I'll touch on real quick is Brock Purdy still available. Let's say I didn't have a second quarterback already, or maybe I didn't have any quarterbacks. I still am probably not taking Brock Purdy here. Reason being, although I have 2 of his pass catchers, one of the things that I'm hoping for with this team, with both Kittle and Debo, is that Ayuk gets traded. If Ayuk gets traded, that's bad for Purdy. So you'd think like, oh, it's really positively correlated to add Purdy to both Debo and Kittle. No. That seems much more inversely correlated to me at the moment with all this uncertainty around Ayuk. So I would not take Purdy anyway. To me, Purdy should be taken around 140 just because he offers next to nothing with his legs. And there's so many great quarterbacks who can add stuff with their legs, including both of the guys that I have. So Purdy at 105 is never something I'm doing. I might even have 0% Brock Purdy at this point. But I now have 3 running backs, 3 receivers, 2 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks. Another thing that I love about doing this, early 2 stud quarterback, 2 stud tight end builds is I get to spend the rest of the time just taking shots and running backs and receivers. I can take all the upside shots that I want because I know I'm going to have a lot of guys at those positions. So if I take a shot in a high upside guy and he kind of just stinks all season, or maybe he gets beat out on the depth chart and this and that, so be it. I've got other guys. So I really like the process of drafting these types of teams. Another reason why I went with that double stud quarterback and double stud tight end build. And of course, part of that too is that's just the value that came to me. So really, really love this again. Next two picks, 132, 133. 132, 133. Where are we at now? 119. 119. So we got a pretty long way to go still. 132, 133. We might be looking at my highest owned running back to this point in the season. Eagles fans, don't come at me. Zeke can be fine from a fantasy perspective, and they can still be bad. Don't get mad at me if I take Zeke. As I said, he's my highest owned running back to this point in the best ball season. It's not that I think he's going to be like the lead guy the way he used to be. I just still think he's going to get the high value touches and the high value snaps. I think he'll be the guy running the ball into the end zone, and I think he'll be the guy pass protecting when they're in obvious passing downs. And if you're in pass protection, the blitz doesn't come, go out into the flat for some easy PPR reception. So just think he's really undervalued for even a far from bell cow role. All I need is the high value touches from him. It's actually similar to why I was so high on Tony Pollard a couple years ago. I felt like he would have lots of high value touches, different high value touches, because he obviously wasn't going to be the red zone guy, the goal line guy, the way Zeke should be. But it's a similar idea. I don't care about the number of touches. I care about how valuable the touches the player gets are. Couple decent ways to go here. I like Wicks, but I don't think I would take Wicks because when I take Wicks is when I have another one of those Green Bay receivers, get that inverse correlation, and it then helps you with the fact that I don't know which Green Bay receiver is going to be great. They've got 4 of them who could be great. I want multiple shots at that receiving core, or I don't want to take any shots. There he went anyway. It's kind of looking like I'm going to be taking more running backs here. I do like Nick Chubb at this spot. I like Chubb here because, man, when he gets back, if he's anything like his old self, he's going to be phenomenal come playoff time. And come playoff time, you're going to think, I have one of the best running backs, and I only used pick 132 or 133 on him. Like, that feels pretty darn great. So looking like Chubb and Zeke for me here. Mike Williams is also very intriguing. It's pretty much all that I would consider at this point. When I don't have many tight ends, I am all over Hawkinson at this part of the draft. Same with Taysom Hill. Obviously, I don't need those guys here. So this is going to be Chubb and Zeke for me pretty easily. So all of a sudden, I didn't take a running back, and then I took 5 of them. Pollard, Chase Brown, Zach Moss, Nick Chubb, Zeke Elliott. I like that backfield. I like that backfield quite a bit. Receivers are now the weak link, believe it or not, even though I started with 2 of them, Harrison, Debo, and then Hollywood Brown, who I think is severely undervalued at this point in draft. So feeling really, really good about this, and hopefully we get some nice value picks at both the receiver and running back positions coming in, and then I will feel wonderful. I know a couple receivers that I'm going to take late because they very rarely go in drafts, so that's another reason why I can go 2 running backs here a little bit, because I don't have many running backs that I like with those last few picks. I don't think any of them have much of a chance to be real difference makers come the end of the season. You're kind of just hoping for somebody to plug and play and give you something. But at the receiver position, I feel like I can get some really meaningful scores out of those last couple rounds. So I'm definitely more comfortable stacking up on running backs now and waiting for receivers late than I would be the reverse. And I will say, I mentioned earlier, so actually Ray Davis, I'm going to star him because he's been one of my absolute favorite targets. I wrote the Bills chapter of the FTN Almanac, and one of my biggest takeaways was, man, I would like this guy if all he was was a goal line threat to James Cook. At this draft position, if all he was doing was taking goal line carries, I'd like him. And last year, they gave goal line carries to just about everybody before they gave them to James Cook. So I think Ray Davis, who's kind of really, really well suited for that role, has a great chance of that. And then, shockingly, word out of camp, early in training camp, and even through the preseason here, is that he's a much better receiving threat and a better pass blocker. Basically kind of hit his ceiling in both of those regards for where he could be at this point in his young career. So, man, if he has goal line carries and some receiving work to spell James Cook, that'd be phenomenal. So I'm going to start him. If I can't get him, I really like the duo of Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson because I do not believe in DeAndre Swift. I watched him as a diehard Eagles fan all of last year. He was great in the first few weeks. That offensive line is so good. And the threat that Jalen Hurts presents to run helps running back so much. And he just couldn't get it going on the ground. He was near the bottom of the NFL in rushing yards over expected beyond those first 3 weeks. Even if he stays healthy, I think there's a good chance that either Herbert and or Roschon kind of vault him in the depth chart. Of course, if he gets hurt, then you get the dual benefit. And as Sam pointed out earlier today, maybe Herbert gets traded and you have an out there. And if Herbert got traded, then Roschon Johnson as the now RB2 would be a phenomenal value at 208. And maybe Herbert lands at a place where he has a better role than the role he's starting out with behind Swift. So I really like that duo. If I end up with that duo, I'll be very happy. But I would like to get some receivers here. And I've got Kyler, so Michael Wilson makes a ton of sense here. It's probably going to be one of the picks. I would have taken Dotson before the trade to my Eagles today. I'm not super into Polk, but Sam is, and Sam is one of the sharpest in the business. So I might just I'm not going to follow that because Polk was just taken. But otherwise, that would have been a very real thought for me. Ray Davis was just taken, so I can't go Ray Davis. I was starting to lean towards Wilson and Ray Davis here. Although if I went Ray Davis, I don't think I want 8 running backs in the end. So if I'm going to do the Herbert and Roschon, would I have to reach for Herbert here? Chances are he's not getting back to me at 180. With that 170 ADP. So what is his actual ADP? 172. So yeah, I think I'd have to go Herbert here if I want to make that happen. And you know what? I don't feel like I'm missing out on much if I reach for him here. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with Michael Wilson, and then I'm going to go Khalil Herbert. So Roschon Johnson will almost certainly be my final running back selected, and then I'm just going to load up on receiver from here. Don't want him anymore. I do like Demario Douglas. I'm just going to start adding a lot of the guys to the queue here. I will take Dortch in my stack. Don't really have any Buffalo guys to add. I'm good with Tyler Boyd. Good with McMillan. Certainly good. I'm going to take these 2 guys out for a second because I like Luke McCaffrey a lot more now. DJ Chark, one of my favorite late targets. And then I'll add Zay Jones to the mix. I'll add De'Ami Brown to the mix. And then my guy doesn't get drafted a lot, but I think is a phenomenal value at the end, Nelson Aguilar. So I've got tons and tons of options. Again, I like all of these guys. Some of them make sense within my stack. Some of them just, I think, are better players than where they're being drafted and deserve to be drafted a lot earlier than they are, including, I mean, De'Ami Brown hasn't been drafted for a lot of the season, I'm sure, but at this point, he probably will start to get drafted. But hey, we're maybe deep enough into the season or deep enough into the offseason and into this contest that he still might be low owned once you get to the playoffs, because people are only now going to start drafting Brown. So like both of those guys a lot at the end. We'll see what falls to me. My next 2 picks are 180 and 181, and then I get 204 and 205. So I think I'm going to take the gamble that Roschon makes it back to 204, 205, and take 2 of these receivers with my next 2 picks. So I've got 6 picks remaining. I'm probably going 5 receivers and 1 running back. And again, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you want to drop any questions, talk about best ball strategy, want to roast my lineup, ask me why I made any silly decisions that I made in this draft, go ahead. Ask me about DFS, whatever you want. Ask me about subscription packages, whatever you want. Just toss those into the chat if you would like. And I'll give one more reminder here. 15% off any package over at FTN. FTN 15 is the promo code that you need. Seems like this round is taking forever. Still only at 169. Luke McCaffrey taken at 169. So that ADP is going to rise and rise quickly, especially in these high stake contests. Dotson, by the way, still available. Baker Mayfield still available. So you can see some of these quarterbacks really, really fall at these higher stakes. I wonder if Darnold will even be taken ahead of some of them. Watson has fallen. Isaiah Likely has fallen. The only time I have found myself taking Likely is when I get Lamar without Mark Andrews. I make it a high priority to get Likely. So honestly, I feel like at times you can almost see everybody using that strategy where when Likely falls is when the Lamar owner has Mark Andrews. When he was able to draft both of those guys, Likely tends to fall. So not super surprising, although I don't actually know if the Lamar owner has Andrews in this one. So I guess I shouldn't say it's super surprising, but Justin Fields still available. If I didn't have a quarterback, I'd be in on that. If I didn't have other tight ends, I think Sanat is a really, really solid play now. With obviously lots of talk, including from myself here with McCaffrey and De'Ami Brown, on which of these wide receivers from Washington are going to benefit. We might just see a lot of 2 tight end sets, in which case Sanat is going to play a lot more early on this year than he otherwise would have. And it's a pretty simple path for him. It's the exact path McBride took. All you got to do is supplant Zach Ertz at some point in the season when your team stinks and maybe some better team is going to want to trade for Ertz. So yeah, I think Sanat's a really good pick at this point in time, but I am obviously not looking for more tight ends since I have both George Kittle and Dalton Kincaid. All right, one more pick. So probably going Dortch here. Man, if this is the exact board that I'm presented with, I'm probably going to take Purcell as well. And that is the same bet as Debo and Kittle. That is hoping that Ayuk gets traded out of town, in which case he has a much easier path to snaps. Already has a path to snaps. Obviously, that third receiver position not locked up by any means in San Francisco. But if Ayuk was run out of town, or was traded out of town, I should say, not run out of town, then he would become that much better. So I know I'm going Dortch here. Really complete that Arizona stack. Let's just go ahead and do that at this point. And now I think Purcell's going to be next. Could go Chark. Could go Tim Patrick. But man, I think taking the guy who makes sense with my Kittle and Debo is just a little bit too tough to pass up. So that's what I'm going to do. And now I'm hoping that next time around I get Roschon Johnson. I have, let's see, I have 4 picks remaining. Yeah, so it's going to be Roschon and then 3 of these 4 receivers. Ideally, obviously, those guys could be taken. I know I'm going to take Aguilar. I pretty much, well, I don't know that I'm going to take De'Ami Brown. Zay Jones makes so much sense with this stack. Obviously, I don't feel like super good. I don't feel like Dortch or Wilson are slam dunk plays by any stretch of the imagination. I I love Kyler. I'm betting on Kyler. And if Kyler does have that fantastic season, yes, Harrison is probably a big part of it. Yes, McBride is probably a big part of it, who I don't have. But you can almost guarantee that somebody else is going to have a big year or somebody else is going to have big weeks. And if I can get all of those big weeks, that will go a long, long way. So, um, going that deep into a stack, I think is something that's much, much easier to do on DraftKings when you get 20 roster spots than Underdog. Another thing that Sam and I talked about on the strategy show earlier. So again, go check that one out if you haven't already. A lot of you probably were in that show earlier today, and we weren't able to get one of these draft rooms filled. Glad that we've been able to do this at this point. So let's see how we're able to close this one out. It's not finally going at 190. That's surprising. I was guessing that he was going to vault up to 170, 175 as well. So at this point, all my targets still on the board. If I was low on quarterbacks, I'm pretty surprised that Fields is still available. That honestly, that might mean that these higher stakes are a little bit higher on Russell Wilson's chances to actually be the quarterback for Pittsburgh throughout the season. I'm not sure what to make of that. I've got a lot of Fields, so honestly, I haven't been taking him much since the speculation has led to Fields being a 170s pick instead of the 210s that we saw for a lot of this offseason, because I got to around 40% Fields earlier this year, and so now I'm still at like 28% or something like that, I think, of Justin Fields, despite the fact that I haven't been taking him pretty much since he got to 180. So I feel good about being early on that, and now I don't have to reach for him. But honestly, if news broke that he was going to be the starter, I'd probably start taking him around 140. So still super, super high on him if he ends up being the quarterback. All right. Almost there. 5 picks away. So far, all 5 guys that I've got loaded up in the queue are still available. Love to see that. They're also not even on the first page yet, so feeling pretty good about my chances. Now, if I have everybody available, I do have an interesting decision to make, which I will talk through in a moment. I know I'm going Roschon here. I've got to get that 7th running back, and I love, love, love the combination of Roschon and Khalil Herbert. But then I'm left with some more difficult decisions. So let's go. I'm going to wait for a second here so I can think this through. So basically, what I'm trying to figure out is whether I want to go DJ Chark here and then take 2 of the final 3, or I want to pass on Chark and go with the final 3. Zay Jones makes sense with my Arizona stack, so I really want him. Aguilar I know I want because he's going to be a low-owned guy that not many people even draft. But De'Ami Brown has a little bit of that as well. So the question is that little bit with De'Ami Brown worth how much worse I think he's going to be than DJ Chark? I mean, I think Chark was such a genuinely, serviceable deep threat. And obviously he didn't come through in that way a year ago, but man, now he's actually now he's with a great quarterback again. I don't want to blame Chark for the fact that Bryce Young wasn't completing the ball to him downfield. So I don't think I'm going to pass on him. I think I'm going to go Chark here. And then Zay Jones and Nelson Aguilar are going to be my final 2 guys, as long as they are still there. Aguilar will almost certainly still be there. If Zay Jones is not there anymore, I will just go to De'Ami Brown instead. So those are going to be my final 2 picks. We'll see exactly how they close up. Now, in the description, we did say that we talk a little bit of week 1 stuff. Now, I wish Sam had been able to join. kudos to him for joining me earlier today, and kind of had to throw a Hail Mary on it with the fact that the draft room just didn't fill, and we were waiting for about 2 hours and it wasn't going to fill. So just kind of scrapped it and tried again at nighttime and prime time. And that seemed to be the better way to go for this. But now we know for the next one. Gotta win another ticket for that though. But yeah, talk a little bit about week one. I actually have looked at pricing a decent amount so far. Interestingly, both of the quarterbacks that I have here, Josh Allen and Kyler Murray, they play each other in week one. And so one of the things that I've been looking at a lot is, man, if I go to that game, which tight end am I choosing? If I go to that game, am I using Curtis Samuel? Does the Buffalo stack become better or worse if there's no Curtis Samuel, because it maybe is a little bit easier to predict where the targets go, who's on the field, who's getting all those snaps. But then, I think Curtis Samuel is going to be a really valuable piece for them. So the offense won't be as good. And if I go to the Arizona side, do I want both Harrison and McBride, or do I need to choose between the two? So been looking a lot at that. I think Anthony Richardson is going to be one of the most popular plays of the slate, but I don't really like stacking him or I don't like any of the guys that you would want to stack with him. So that becomes a little tougher. Jaden Daniels to Terry McLaurin with a Mike Evans bring back looks spectacular. But now because Dotson's gone, it might be more popular. McLaurin will certainly be more popular, even though I don't necessarily think that is reasonable. Like, I think McLaurin was a phenomenal play to begin with. I don't think the departure of Dotson does a whole lot for him, but I do think it will affect ownership quite a bit. Running backs, I will say Ray Davis, 4,500, looking like one of my favorite values. Certainly want to be ahead of the curve on him if he has the kind of role that I am between expecting and hoping for him. I don't want to say I'm expecting him to have the goal line carries and a bunch of targets, but I think he's got a really good chance at it. So 4,500, I like him quite a bit. Yeah, one of the things we talked about earlier is it's definitely notable that in that first week, we don't have Patrick Mahomes, we don't have Jalen Hurts, we don't have Lamar Jackson on the main slate. So that advantage for Josh Allen over the other quarterbacks, it's quite high. It's really, really quite high. Chase Brown, another guy drafted here, only $5,000 in week one. Not the easiest matchup in New England, but it actually might fit his skill set so much more than the Zach Moss skill set that maybe it almost helps him that it's a difficult matchup to run against. De'Ami Brown already taken off the board. So Zay Jones and Nelson Aguilar, if I am lucky, will be my final two. We're at pick 221. I am 228 and 229. So hopefully we can get exactly what we want. Then I'll kind of recap the whole team that I've built, and then we will hop out of here. So thank you everybody for joining. This has been a lot of fun. My first live fast 5-5-5 draft. And I got to say, I'm pretty pleased with what I came out with. I was almost expecting in my slow draft, I felt like I was getting sniped at the last minute a lot. And I kind of thought, you know what, that's just life at the 5-5-5 level. But I feel much, much better about this team that I have drafted today. So one pick away from getting the guys that I want. And if I get them, I will be thrilled with where this team has ended up. Hopefully this Mo person is not watching and taking some glee from stealing either of my guys. Otherwise, we'll be pretty good to go. I probably should have taken at least a moment to prepare if I don't get one of these guys who I will take instead. I haven't, and I am not burned by it. We get both Zay Jones and Nelson Aguilar. All right. Love this team. So, Josh Allen, Tony Pollard. You know what? Let me get the better view. How do I do that? Draft board. Okay, here we go. All the way on the right-hand side, Marvin Harrison Jr. first, Deebo Samuel, Josh Allen, and then I reached for Kincaid. Then I went Kittle and Kyler. So completing one stack and then getting the pairing of Deebo and Kittle. When I took Deebo, I made the note, if I'm taking Deebo, I've got to make it a priority to get Kittle. And I didn't even really have to reach for him. Got him at 60, so very happy with that. Hollywood Brown, one of my favorite picks. got him at 84. I have been able to take him in the 90s, even sometimes in the hundreds. I tweeted the other day that people are now passing on Hollywood Brown at the same price that they were taking Sky Moore a year ago, which is absolute insanity to me. Hollywood Brown is such a phenomenal fit with Mahomes, as is Xavier Worthy. I think that offense is just going to be a lot of fun to watch. And actually, in a weird way, the last year or so, adjusting to life without Tyreek Hill, adjusting to teams almost forcing him to beat them in the intermediate, and him having to beat them in the intermediate, because even if they were giving him the long ball, MVS, Hardman, they weren't winning deep. So the fact that Mahomes had to learn how to do that, man, that's so dangerous for teams who now are going to have to put two guys high basically every single snap, maybe even three guys high at times. Mahomes is just going to have such a great year. I think that offense is going to be beyond deadly. Anyway, Tony Pollard was going to take TJ Spears to get that inverse correlation with that pairing. Instead, I was able to get Chase Brown and Zach Moss, so loved that. Chubb and Zeke, just two guys that I think are really good values at that point in time, and I knew that I had receivers waiting for me. Michael Wilson, part of the stack. Herbert, setting up the duo of Herbert and Roshan, which is also a bet against DeAndre Swift that I love so much. Dortch for the stack. Purcell for the same bet as the Kittle and Debo bets. And then completed with Roshan. And then DJ Chark, one of my favorite late-round picks. Nelson Aguilar, my favorite late-round pick, my highest-owned wide receiver. And then Zay Jones completing the Arizona stack. I love this team. I really, really, really love this team. Just because you love a team doesn't mean it's going to be great, but I said at the beginning, I do think it's a disadvantage to draft at the 1-2 turn, but I have liked every single team that I have drafted at the 1-2 turn. So maybe it's not a disadvantage. Really, really happy with this. Thanks everybody for tuning in. One last time, promo code FTN15 gets you 15% off any FTN subscription. DVOA. Stats Hub is going to be phenomenal. And then the whole reason why I'm here drafting is because the PGA DFS season has been unbelievable. I thought it was like a 1-month hot streak, and then I thought it was a 2-month hot streak, and then a 3-month hot streak. It's been the whole PGA season. The GPP scores have been unbelievable. The GPP scores have been unbelievable for baseball as well, and hopefully they're going to be just as good in NFL. If you're not familiar with the GPP scores, here's a really, really quick primer. One of the difficulties with DFS, particularly for new DFS players, and in football, there are a lot of them, right? You love fantasy football. You want to test your skills in DFS, but you've never done it before. And there's so much to think about. There's the player's price, his projection, his ownership, his floor, his ceiling. How do you bring all of that together to make one decision on whether to play the player or not? The GPP scores do that for you. They incorporate all of that. They put it into one metric. A positive number means he's under-owned and you should play him. A negative number means he's over-owned and you should fade him. The higher the positive number, the better the play. The lower the negative number, the more you want to fade the guy. It's that simple, and just following the GPP scores, even if you don't know anything else about the sport, has been super successful in PGA and super successful in baseball. Let's hope for more of the same in football. So use FTN15 to get yourself a DFS subscription or the VIP subscription with this fantasy DFS and betting. All DFS packages come with all of the fantasy stuff as well. Content, cheat sheets, rankings, everything you need for drafts. So go ahead, use that promo code FTN15. I don't know when it's going to end. I think it might end tomorrow, Friday night. It might end this weekend. We might just keep extending it because it has been super popular. I don't know. So make sure you use it as quickly as possible to make sure that you get it. Thanks, everybody, one last time for tuning in. Catch you next time.